the Big Boss build. A build focused on silenced weapons, in particular pistols, first aid, dodge, and a sprinkle of CQC, the quintessential combat ghost, if you will. The majority of our skills today will be in the Ghost tree, Fugitive tree, and a little bit in the Mastermind tree. In Ghost, we have Duck and Cover, Inner Pockets, Parkour, and Sneaky Bastard Ace. This is for our dodge. Second Wind, Optical Illusions, the Professional, and Specialized Killing for our silenced weapons. In Fugitive, Equilibrium, Desperado, One-Handed Talent Ace for our pistols. Martial Arts, Bloodthirst, Pumping Iron, and Counter-Strike Ace for our CQC. Mastermind, Combat Medic, Quick Fix, Uppers for our first aid kits, and since we're using the Lightweight Ballistic Vest, I also opted to pick up Die Hard. Now with the rest of my skill points, I also ended up picking up Resilience, Transporter, Forced Friendship, Stable Shot, and Steady Grip. These are fairly easy skills to acquire, and they have some nice passive benefits as well. For our perk deck, we are going to be using the Crook Perk Deck. So, Big Boss uses a plethora of weapons, but most iconically, he's shown with the M16 in Peace Walker related content, and for Metal Gear Solid 3, he's known for carrying around a 9-11 with a combat knife. So for our primary, we're going to be using the AMR-16 with the DMR kit, Low Profile Suppressor, Blast from the Past Handguard, Straight Grip, Thrust Lower Receiver, L5 Magazine, Wide Stock, and the LW Upper Receiver. For our secondary, we're using the Cross Kill with the Rotec Suppressor, Tactical Pistol Light, and the Bling Grip. For our melee, the Ursa Knife, Grenade Throwable, First Aid Kit Deployable, and Lightweight Ballistic Vest Armor. Kept you waiting, huh? Alright, I'm pretty fond of this build. Well, that can mostly be attributed to my fondness of the Metal Gear Solid series, but that's besides the point. The build itself is pretty solid, and how it perfectly encapsulates the character as well is great. I like that for this build in particular, it's almost as if I'm role-playing as Big Boss. So with this build, I knew I wanted to make a silencer setup. I've always done those, and I'm very partial to these kinds of setups. Some of my earliest builds were builds for silenced pistols. Of course, with this, it's the same as before, but with more to it. This is another build running Crook. Been loving Crook since it's actually pretty good again. But since we don't have anything here in terms of health regen, I'm packing first aid kits. Really makes it nostalgic to when the Fugitive tree first came out. At first, I wasn't sure what deployable to use for this build, but then I remembered the stupid ass survival viewer from Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, I know for me, that was one of the first games where to heal, you had to treat yourself sometimes if your injuries were too severe. Instead of, herpity derp, I'm gonna just go run over this health pack and magically feel better. That thing definitely made the game very immersive, but goddamn, I had no idea what to do the first few times. And it was pretty clunky as hell too, like, damn, I got shot? Let's see, maybe some, disinfectant, you know, that makes sense. Oh yeah, a bandage, that looks good. Get out of that menu, wonder why the hell my health bar is still red, and realize, oh yeah, I forgot to take the bullet out. Or like eating some food from that one marker that I killed way back, only to get food poisoning. Bring up the survival viewer, be like, oh yeah, I remember reading on GameFAQs that they said you could just spin around a whole bunch to make him vomit, and then that'll cure me. Fucking good times, man. First aid kits, of course this build's gotta have them. Ain't the same impact, but what can you do? With Crook, your dodge is pretty good, but even so, you're still pretty squishy, so having first aid kits to help you whenever you start getting low is a must. Of course, going Crook alone isn't all that hot. I picked up Sneaky Bastard and the other dodge skills from the Artful Dodger tree in Ghost. Your survivability, pretty decent. You got all that dodge since you're wearing the lightweight ballistic vest, and you have much tankier armor than just wearing a suit. Very nice to take along, even for Death Wish. Since this build is all about them silencers, gotta go with the silencer skills, the Professional and Silent Killer. Wait, not Silent Killer, it's Specialized Killing now, or whatever. This combination of skills can make a lot of weapons really nice to use, as long as you slap a silencer on them. And with the skills Optical Illusions and Inner Pockets, you're gonna have a much easier time making concealed setups with weapons. Right now, I'm using a pretty well modded M16 in 1911, and I still only have 10 visibility. That's hardcore. These are both very good weapons normally, and being boosted by the silencer skills for damage and handling makes them quite a powerhouse. The M16 in particular has got over 210 damage, 92 accuracy, and I think like 50-ish stability. Well, actually the stability isn't all that great, but just about everything else about it is doing pretty well. This is a DMR kit M16 too, which usually has a much harder time getting decent concealment because of the way the mod is. But with this setup, it's like a fucking pocket carry weapon. With the DMR kit you have the power of an M308, but with a much larger 30-round magazine and good concealment. Now for the 1911, that thing has 100 plus damage, perfect 100 accuracy, and almost 70 stability, and almost maximum concealment too. It also has some decent ammo. For a pistol of this damage, it's got a good reserve as well as adequate ammo pickup. Like, damn, even if those inflated numbers don't do anything for the guns, it definitely adds placebo effect for making your guns awesome. Either way, they perform very well. That much is a fact. The only thing I kinda wish I had was the skill Gun Nut Aced for a better fire rate with the pistols, since you can definitely feel that low rate of fire affecting the 1911 negatively. But since it's so powerful, it doesn't really need too many shots to kill, unlike if you were carrying something like the PPK. Now let's talk a little bit about the CQC part of this build. Of course, when we got a big boss build, we gotta have some close quarters combat skills incorporated into our gameplay. We picked up Counter-Strike Ace to make sure no one could beat us in hand-to-hand combat, not basic units, not even cloakers. Having Counter-Strike on a build that's not entirely focused on melee is actually really nice. I mean, some people would consider it a waste since you can use the electrical brass knucks or the buzzer melee to counter cloakers, or just rely solely on avoiding them. But let's face it, cloakers find a way. Those buggy ass guys can get you, and they will get you. Knowing you have something just to counter them is pretty satisfying. Another skill that was surprisingly nice is Bloodthirst. After doing the Deadpool build, I realized that Bloodthirst was actually a pretty nice skill, even alone, since it makes your melee surprisingly powerful as long as you had stacked up 3 kills. Paired with Pumping Iron for extra damage, even the little weak knife I brought along did surprisingly well. Now imagine if you paired that with something that actually did more damage. You can have a very reliable melee incorporated into your gameplay. Sure, you're not going to rely on it, but using it semi-consistently will help you out in the long run when saving ammo. For a very small point investment, you now have a consistently useful melee that you can use on a whim. I found a newfound respect for Bloodthirst. This build is nice. I really like it. It is a little bit selfish though. You aren't running many things that are helpful for your teammates, but if that's bothering you, I'm sure you could easily make it more team-oriented. By dropping off like the melee stuff, you could get Inspire. Or what you could do is also shift around points to make this more of a stealth build by getting stuff in the Covert Ops subtree. Make this build a real nice pseudo-stealth build. This build was mostly made to fit the character of Big Boss, but depending on what you wanted, you could easily change a few things to make it more your own, for the skills as well as the weapons. And speaking about the weapons, there are plenty of good weapons for a silencer setup. Other assault rifles like the Val, SMGs are also very nice. In fact, for me, I usually make silent killer builds as an excuse to make SMGs better, and to get more use out of them since they're probably more underused than any of the other weapon types. Oh yeah, and like I said, the melee too, you could swap out the Ursa knife and pick up something that'll make more use out of Bloodthirst. Though, after using it, I ended up actually taking a liking to this knife. It looks pretty cool, and I never noticed that it got some new animations. Before, knife animations were pretty bad, and I have no idea when this changed, probably during the first-person animation update, which was actually quite a while ago, but it's looking pretty nice now. Also, one last thing I wanted to mention before the video is over is that I got mods for this particular video, if you haven't noticed. One to change how the crosskill looked, and one to exchange Big Boss's Ground Zero bus model with quick shades. I'll leave a link to that somewhere in the description. I can't take this fucking face seriously.